Uh, so, my name is yurij.riphyak. I represent the 40 Foundation. And before starting the presentation, I would like to say a few words about the main author. He is not here because of urgent business in Japan, but I would consider it more fair if he presents this instead of me. Hares Youssef is a philosopher, a poet, a philanthropist, an successful entrepreneur, everything but an economist. And that is why the human and resource economic system ideas emerged more from the profound field of ethics and thinking about the role of human in human civilization and in relations with the environment. The work is very far today from being called finished research. It's rather a set of ideas that should be developed further, like an outline of what we are interested in understanding. Yet, for us economists, it was a rare chance to look at the role of economics from the completely different point of view, something which we really require. Okay, so now let's go.
Sorry, could you say just a few words about the 40 Foundation?
Okay. The 40 Foundation is a charity. Our main goals is support of independence of science and promotion of interdisciplinary approach to certain topics that we believe are of interest to many people. And this much has to do with economics. For example, this is we believe it's a beginning of a network of research projects that will empower NGOs worldwide, especially international NGOs, with the academic backing for their advocacy of certain reforms. That
who funded it?
Sorry?
How is it funded?
The 40 Foundation?
Yes.
The founder is Hares Youssef. There are also some other people involved, but the main part of it is like a network of independent specialists, researchers, projects that we support or develop ourselves. All right. So, dear colleagues, there are three major adverse global economic tendencies which are both commonly recognized, same by mainstream and heterodox economics, and sufficiently severe to make their solution a principal task of modern economics. Deepening of economic inequality, environmental degradation, depletion of natural resources. The first one is associated with the idea of justice, whilst the latter two with the idea of sustainable development. Both these notions are in no way addressed by the today's mainstream economics. And this fact is what me and my colleagues consider one of the reasons why the three problems I mentioned before are coming more and more acute. The possible solution of these problems is complicated by the fails of modern markets, induced by the principles of neoliberalism and implemented globally through the Washington Consensus prescriptions. These can be distinguished to those of financial markets and goods markets. These, in the short run, they induce economic instability, lack of balance between supply and demand, and distortion of value, while in the long run their effects lead to overproduction and are associated with systemic profound crises, last of which the world is experiencing today. In general, the set of market problems results in distortion of the principal function of market system, the informational function. This function is in expressing all the multitude of information on status of supply and demand through a single indicator, the price, which is determined from the supply side by production costs and from the demand side by the value perceived by consumer, which determines his willingness to pay. These three crucial information indicators, price, cost, and value, are what today's economic model is unable to set adequately. Worldview of a modern Western world representative is shaped by many centuries of struggle with hostile factors of environment, in combination with the individualism typical for European civilization. In the foundation of this worldview lays the profound subliminal fear of future. In modern economy, this fear has found its expression in the four principles of economic behavior, reserving insurance, privacy, and security. Me and my colleagues agree that these principles are useful in extent adequate to the real risk level. However, as soon as they become fundamental guidelines for the economic engines, this is fraught with serious obstacles to market functioning, in particular insufficient information, inefficient extra costs, ideal financial capital, etc. These impediments are the profound reason initially and vicious factor later for the above-mentioned market fails. The financial system has grown to a very big and awkward stratification about the real economy. The banking sector deregulation lobbyists enjoyed great support from the mainstream economic theory that for a few past decades has been denying the ability of the financial system to influence the real economy through the monetarist assertion of money neutrality, despite the overwhelming empirical evidence of the contrary. Another inconsistency of the mainstream economic is ignoring the heterogeneity of the different social groups' behavior while developing applied economic models. These two things, money neutrality hypothesis and ignoring the social classes, do not let the economists to deal appropriately with the issues of poverty and economic inequality deepening caused by the volatility of the current economic system. Price fluctuations are normal for every market, but the excess volatility is inherent precisely for financial markets, in particular for the international currency market, and is mainly caused by the participation of big speculative capitals, providing supply and demand that do not reflect the needs of real economy and stem from a desire to profit on fluctuations in the price of currencies. This diagram is JP Morgan G7 Currencies Volatility Index. So you can see that the average volatility during last years is about 10%, and in October 2009 it reached almost 25%. Floating exchange rate by national currency is recognized by the modern economic theory to be useful for national economy, as it allows the state to stimulate domestic production by the means of expansionary monetary policy, and to boost the exports and total revenue of the local economy by reducing the exchange rate of national currency. But it is not well recognized that if the national economy is export-oriented, which is peculiar for the less developed countries, the expansionary monetary policy can lead to a significant rise of the consumer price index, exacerbated by higher prices on imported goods, which often are price inelastic. While shareholders of exporting entities benefit from evolving sales, their employees suffer real income decline. The income disparities always widen after depreciation or devaluation. However, there are different points of view on inflation. The proponents of moderate inflation rates see among the benefits the possibility of the state to profit from seigniorage, and optionally from the negative interest rates, as well as to reduce real expenditures in government sector of the economy via money illusion. Their opponents argue that there are benefits, that all these benefits appear to be not quite fair for the citizens, and besides that, inflation induces extra costs to society, such as so-called shoe leather costs, for example. Tax distortions influence the accuracy of budget planning, and in case of variable inflation, all the fixed income investments appear to become much riskier. On the other hand, a zero inflation rate is desirable in itself, as knowing that the price level will be the same in 10 or 20 years as it is today simplifies a number of complicated economic decisions. Our parents and their parents had the luxury of planning ahead that we don't have. The diagram on the slide shows the UK price index since 1700. As you can see, persistent inflation is a very recent phenomenon. Pegging the currency is one of the possible ways to overcome inflation and exchange rate volatility. But till today, no pegging, in particular to gold, has proven its feasibility. On the other hand, the big selling points of floating exchange rates, monetary independence, and accommodation of trade shocks have not lived up to their promise. This is the question, thus, the question of the optimally monetary regime is still open. If we consider in retrospect any process of value creation and go deeper into its understanding to the level of physical processes, it becomes evident that any process of this kind is nothing else than overflow and conversion of energy. In our view, the most correct, objective, and fair peg of a new global currency is precisely the energy unit of its quantitative and unit of its quantitative expression.